The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu. Welcome to the Center for Educational Media. I'm Dr. Laura Clark, Director of CEM here at MTSU's College of Education. We're so happy you've joined us today for the AI in K12, and we have a great session for you today. We welcome Mr. Greg Bagby, who is Technology Coach at Boyd Buchanan School in Hamilton County. Mr. Bagby has done some innovative things both here in Tennessee and nationwide, and we are so glad he's here to share some of his successful strategies for K12 schools. So Mr. Bagby, we're so glad you're here today. Welcome. Looking forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you for having me. Jumping right in, for years when teachers had a need in their classroom, they usually had a few options. Those options would be either search for a tool that maybe fit the need that they had to fill, or they could ask the district if the district had a tool that could do what they needed it to do. But more recently, we're looking at something that's a little bit different. We're going to try to figure out how to make something to satisfy that need. And we're going to try that through what we call vibe coding. And what that is, it's going to give the teacher the opportunity to create exactly what they need and what they want to do. So just know that I'm not saying that coding itself, line by line coding, is not something that we should not have available or something to do without. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we're going to have the opportunity to learn how to create some of the apps and tools that we need in our own classroom just by using our own voice. So our learning target for today is I would like to empower teachers to use natural language and AI tools to rapidly prototype and build custom digital classroom resources to reduce burnout, increasing student engagement. So when we take a deeper look at that, empowering educators, yes, I want educators to be empowered. Being in the field for the last 30 plus years, I've seen educators with autonomy and without autonomy, and I love having educators be happy and create with themselves because I've realized that happy teachers make happy students. And when I think of the whole idea of the natural language and AI, natural language is basically using that language that you speak every day, whatever language that may be. You can speak in that language and have AI help you create something that's new and useful for your classroom. So, let me give you a little bit more about me. Here in the state of Tennessee, I had the pleasure of being a music teacher, a computer teacher, school principal, got to do the adjunct faculty role at a technology school in the state, I'll just say that, and also at a private college here in the state. I was the district technology coordinator, and I do some keynote speaking for a couple of organizations here in Tennessee. My focus or my research has been on instructional technology in the classroom. I've always wanted to be able to connect teachers and the tools to help make the students' lives better. When I was a kid, long time ago, when I would disappear into my room, I had an old computer that I would play on, and that computer basically saved me and got me to be where I am today. And that's why my focus on my research has been with that computer and with AI in education. Both my kids had previously stated they wanted to be educators, and I wanted to make sure I could do all that I can to make all the Tennessee educators as best as possible, not just for my students or my kids, but for the other students of Tennessee. And I also focus on school culture and leadership because, once again, happy teachers make happy students, and happy students do amazing things. So I would like to start with this quote. Fully give into the vibe, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. This is Andre Karparth, and I believe he's the one that coined the phrase vibe coding. At least that's what Wikipedia says. And I like this quote because what you're doing, once again, I know it says, forget that the code even exists. Yes, it goes to the point that, yes, we still have the brackets and the dashes and the syntax and line by line coding. However, AI gives us the opportunity to use our words to figure out how to create with just our words and what we can create. And we create these amazing things just by using our natural language. So when we start vibe coding, I think of a good way to think of it, I guess we could have a paradigm shift. Traditional coding is like a line cook. They're the person, like when I was working at this one restaurant, I would have to go and I have to prep everything, and I have to prep the tomatoes the right way. I had to prep the cucumbers. I had to prep different things a certain way. And that's what line coding's like, or that's what traditional coding's like, because you have to go line by line by line by line and understanding all the things that are needed. Vibe coding is like that executive chef, that person who's in the kitchen and he's tasting the creations. He's not worrying about each line or every little thing. He's has the whole thing all together, and he'll taste and say, no, this needs a little bit more of this, or it needs a little bit more of that, or you have too much of this. And I believe vibe coding is more of that whole, I am the one in charge. I am the executive chef. I get to decide what happens and where it goes. Yes, I know someone else has done the lines for me. They've prepared and got everything ready. However, I am the one making that decision. And the result, we have now democratized the way that we're coding. Instead of doing that line by line, even someone as silly as me can go ahead and jump into coding with just using our natural language, which of course is the vibe. So why vibe coding in Tennessee? If you're familiar with the CSTA K12 and AI priorities, it talks about humans and AI and representation and reasoning, and it aligns seamlessly with it. Moreover, I chose vibe coding as a space because as I look at AI literacy and the things that teachers should be working with and understanding and helping students know about AI, we're really good about talking about how we want to make sure that the kids are safe and how we're making sure that things are not only equitable, but things are working out to the betterment of society. One of the places where we forget about our whole idea of AI literacy is the fact of creation. And I've always wanted students to be more creators than consumers. I believe that's why I taught music, that's why I taught computer programs, because I wanted kids to be able to create something, to make something, instead of always consuming. And in this current generation where we have our different social media apps where kids, yes, okay, they're creating these dances so they could put on the web, or they're doing this so they could upload videos. That is creation, but I wanted a little bit more, and I think vibe coding touches on that. But getting back to teachers in Tennessee and why vibe coding, as I've worked in the districts for 30 years, I know that teachers are burning out, and the workload never seems to be a little bit less. This will help teachers stop searching for that perfect app, and they can automate and personalize resources that they're already utilizing. There have been teachers that have created different apps for their schools, and they've gone out and used them immediately. This is so much easier than waiting for a district to go ahead and buy an app that you think will work, but you're not really sure. With vibe coding, you can prototype, you can figure out, hey, this doesn't work, and then you can have it change up. And I think that will help teachers with their workload because they're not beating their heads up against the wall, waiting for this app to be approved or waiting for this to happen or that to happen. And it makes it a little bit easier for teachers in their livelihood. Another thing is this whole scalable culture idea. When teachers instantly create what their students need, it fosters high responsive, performance-driven environment. If I know that my students need a specific vocabulary help and I don't have anything in my high quality instructional materials that I can give them, and I can just generate an app that will do that for them, that will take a little bit of a load off my plate and help those students a little bit more. Another thing that I see inside of Tennessee's classroom when it comes to vibe coding, the whole idea of Tennessee's computer science mandates. Vibe coding, it could go ahead and, if you look at the Tennessee state mandate, where under Chapter 979, Tennessee requires 1 CS credit for high schools and integrated exposure in elementary and middle schools. So they're wanting computer science. No, once again, this isn't taking place of actual line coding. However, this can expose your students to what they can do, what they can build. Students are building apps across the country, and I just want to make sure that the folks in Tennessee are taking part in it and doing some of the same things and having successful creations with their students. Now I'm going to look at my ecosystem, or an ecosystem that I've developed, thinking about different vibe coding tools. We'll start with the brain. And the brain I have as a Google Gemini. That will be our brain. That's a LMS. That's a LLM, large language model, that most schools have access to. And when schools sign into Gemini on a school account, it's like a walled garden, because Gemini has protections in place where the student data doesn't get out. And if you're signing in under a school account, you have access to that protection. And we'll start with that as our brain. Next, I'll call it the sandbox. PlayLab AI is a lab that is about working inside of a lab environment with students or teachers to create and generate chatbots so that the students can use or so that the teacher can use. And yes, it's a walled environment as well, but this walled environment, it looks at lots of different large language models, and you get to choose which ones you can use inside of your chatbot. Next, I have Canvas. Actually, it should be Canva. But the Canvas is where we're going to be creating our AI tools inside of Canva. It is the canvas for our ecosystem, and Canva is the graphics design tool that we've used for years, but now they've implemented some AI strategies. And as teachers can have their students in classrooms on Canva and send out different things for those students to work on, they have access to creating apps as well inside of the safe space that Canva provides through the protections. And all of these apps that I'm mentioning, they all have data privacy agreements that they will sign with schools so that you know that your data and your students' data is being kept safe. And last in this ecosystem, the anchor. I'm using Kira Learning as the anchor, and I'm using it for a couple of reasons. First, because it is the state-approved CS computer science curriculum. It already has the Tennessee state standards inside of it, including the different pedagogical information around Tennessee and what it can do for Tennessee, but they've added another layer. Kira 2.0 involves the use of AI, and inside of Kira 2.0, Not only can you go inside and do your CS lessons, but you can do any subject and work with any lesson, and you can create spaces inside of Kira just for you. So starting with the brain, inside of the brain, we can brainstorm game logic, generate initial code frameworks, and debug our application through natural conversation. As I go, I would like to share with you how we can do some of that inside of the brain. So let's go to that brain. So this is my Gemini pulled up already, and I've already given it a prompt, and we'll get into this prompt a little bit later, but I'm telling it to act as a senior instructor, design developer, and I'd say my 6th grade students are struggling with vocabulary retention, build an interactive vocabulary sorting tool using drag and drop mechanics. And when I tell it to go, one of the great things about Google Gemini, because it's safe for school and it's the framework that we use, I can allow Gemini to talk and think, and it figures out all the things that we need it to do, and then it gives me the code. And it not only does it give me the code, it aligns it with my standards for the state, and then it tells me how to embed the code with the site. Yes. Yes, how to add this code to your site. Yes, yes, yes. And there is the code. Now I have this tricky thing that my brother-in-law and a cousin, they're both programmers. They've been coding for years. And what I just did was use Gemini to do the code. But in a Tennessee classroom, when you use Gemini to create your code, it tells you what you need to do is go to Google site, click embed the code. So I will go to a Google site, I'll click embed code, and once I drop the code in, it will show me exactly what it has created. This is it, our ecosystem. Insert that, and let's see if I made it large enough. Let's do a preview. And here is our sorting activity. How does each living thing get its energy? Drag the vocabulary words from the word bank into the correct category. So this is just this vocabulary thing that I've created simply by typing in a prompt. And then from there, we can go and say, oh, yes, the human, they're the producers, and algae decomposers break down waste. Rabbits, I don't know, they make food. Anyway, I could drop it in. Students can check their answers. Oh, no, I got them all wrong. It's okay. This is just a preview, no worries. But Google's going to be our brain. It's where we're going to get Gemini to create the code for us. The next step inside of the presentation, I talk about the brain. Next, I would like to talk about the sandbox. PlayLab AI is built for schools and allows schools to instantly deploy safe AI-powered mini apps to your students' devices. And these AI-powered mini apps consist of chatbots. PlayLab's chatbots are a little bit different. They're not the beautiful things that we would love to see in regards to all the tools, but PlayLab does things a little bit differently. I'll hop inside of PlayLab. Inside of PlayLab, I'll go ahead and just do this one. We're going to edit the app. What it is, this is Monica, and this is here to help us with our next generation science standards and science instruction. This is looking inside of the guts of PlayLab, just so you know. So what I've done with this is I've given it a whole list. You are a K12 Next Gen Science Standards expert that is trained in project-based learning. Yes, there should be Ivan there. One of the things that we need to understand is PlayLab is simply a chat bot, but we can give it so much information that when we use it, the chat bot It's loading. Here we go. Let's go ahead. Sorry I didn't publish this one, but it is now. It's loading. Okay. I'm back. So, what we can do inside of PlayLab, when I launch the Monica, the phenomenon generator, I select my grade. We're going to go with 6th grade and standard. Let's go with, it says optional. What is it? It's engineering. Engineering and science principles. Is that the standard? I don't remember. Let's see. And it says, hey, if you want to start at any time, just type that over. Tell you the standards. Yeah. Engineering. You know what? AI is really good at figuring out what I want to say. And let's see what Monica tells us about these standards. Awesome. Engineering and science. First, engineering and science is a broad area, not specific in NGSS performance expectations yet. Oh no. What are some of the interests in the class? So I can go back and forth with this chatbot, going over different phenomenon and trying to figure out exactly what we want to do. And the great thing about PlayLab, as I go back, is once you get inside, teachers have created hundreds of lessons and hundreds of chatbots that are available for anyone to use, from math to biology, and geology, in Spanish, I guess, competency-based learning, Roman text, higher ed, Latin. These things have been created by teachers, and what you can do inside of PlayLab, if you see something that you like, PlayLab gives you the option to what they call remix it. When you remix an app, it gives you the option to change the insides of the app and make it to be what you want it to be. And this is our sandbox. That's why it's our sandbox, because not only can we change the app and make it what we want it to be, we have several LLMs that we can choose from when we're going inside of PlayLab. And we can select the specific LLM that does what we want it to do. And if we're not exactly sure, we can hover over the I and it tells you which version you're looking at. This is Claude Sonnet 4.6. And it gives you an idea with the highest intelligence across most tasks, step-by-step reasoning, and it's there for you. I'm just scratching the surface of PlayLab because we have a few more things I would like to share. Next, from the sandbox, we go to our canvas. And our canvas is in Canva. We're going to establish a visual vibe. It quickly generates stunning user interactive elements and graphics, user interface, and layouts with prior design experience. So Canva, as we said, is our design tool that we've used for years. And inside of Canva, we can do the same thing. So I'm going to tell Canva to act as this instructional designer developing the same thing using Canva code. And when I tell it to go, it will show you that it's generating line by line the different texts. So you're not coding, Canva is coding. And then it's going to have an output where you can then share that with the students. And once you share it with the students can have their own app that has been built directly for them. And it's still creating lines and lines and lines. It says, hang on, it'll be ready soon. Actually, it says, hang tight. And the school year's ending, and we'll let that go away. And as it's generating the code, one of the things that you can always do with vibe coding is you can always go back and tell the code, hey, I like this, but I didn't like that. And you don't have to know how to do the code in order to do it, but this is our vocabulary sort that Canva has just created. And for our students, what we can do is publish this and send it to them. But here's an idea of what we got. Radiation, let's say energy, yay, ooh, and it went up, yay. I guess I know a little bit more about this part. But membrane, ooh, that could be cell membrane or the membrane of, okay, cell. But we have this word sort that Canva created just from the same prompt that we had. We're acting as an instructional designer, 6th grade students. Last thing that we're going to go inside of our ecosystem, the last thing I'm going to share is our anchor. To ensure vibe coding tools align perfectly with state standards grounded in your AI creations and robust K12 CS pedagogy. The thing about Kira Learning, once again, it has already been adopted by the state of Tennessee. Tennessee has adopted Kira Learning, and what Kira can do is create a lesson, generate a lesson based on an idea. And I said, oh, the 5th grade class I'm working with, they're studying holes. Can you generate a lesson about holes? And what it has done, the lesson is here, or the image is here, it just needs to refresh. What it has done is created an entire lesson about the book Holes, and it gives the teacher the availability of fixing, correcting, changing anything that the teacher would want, so that the students' responses can show up. It even pulls in videos that may work with the lesson. So it pulled in a Khan Academy video about the theme of the story, understanding story theme. And this was just from the prompt. Let's see if we can go back here. I asked it to create a lesson on holes, and it called it Digging into Holes, Fate, Friendship, and Yelnats Curse. But as we've created our lesson, and we want to create a little bit more because this is about app creation, inside of Canva, I'll just start at the top. I can add an interactive element, and they have these things called action tiles. I can add an action tile in, and what it's going to do is create an app. Let's go ahead and go 6th grade, and my action tile, I'm going to say create a Jeopardy-like game to go with this. Yes, okay, let's improve the prompt. I know, Jeopardy-like. It will improve my prompt, and let's see if it's going to ask me more questions. It improved the prompt, and I'll tell it to generate. It's thinking, you got this, I believe in you. And while it's thinking, we will hop back to this in a moment. So what I've done inside of Kira, first I asked Kira to create a lesson about the book Holes. It generated the lesson based on the standards that I'm using, 6th grade Tennessee standards. Yes, I said 6th grade, even though I used this with the 5th grade class. Oops. And now I'm telling it to generate a Jeopardy-like game, and it's still thinking. While it's thinking, we'll jump back to it in a moment. Let's go back to what the process has been in regards to vibe coding. So when vibing or coding, there's been a loop that I use. First, I try to provide a high-level prompt in plain language, and then I describe the architectural intent. That's just hoity-toity words of saying, I tell it what I want it to give me. Next, allow the AI assistant to interpret your request and produce the initial code framework. So it produced the code as we saw in Gemini as well in Canva. It showed you the code right there. Inside of PlayLab, it's a little bit different, and same thing inside of Kira, which I'll show you in a moment. And then the thing that we've not done yet, refine the human element. Iterate via conversation, adjust mechanics and logic. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our own conversation to adjust what's going on inside of the prompt or inside of the app to make it look better. And then launch the application and share the direct link with our classroom instantly. So that link again, or that loop again, describe, that's our vibe. We're going to describe it. We're going to let it generate. We're going to refine it when needed and deploy it once we've finished. Now, since we've given those ideas, let's see what we've come up with. If I step back inside of Kira, let me close this one real quick. And I see it says pick a category, and it has created a 6th grade Jeopardy game for us. And when we pick a category, $300, I guess I should play it and publish it, and then you'll see how it works. But what if I don't really like the scoring or the look of it? I can go back and I can tell it to, it says a 5x5 board, categories, math, science, language, social studies, and I can say, change it to 4 by 5. And when I tell it to change it, the AI will listen to me, understand me, because once again, I'm not coding, I'm using natural language. Change it to 4 by 5. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. You go over there. And eventually, after it does all this thinking, because it's trying to figure out which one do I get rid of, I guess I should have told it. But you know what? I wanted to see what the AI would do for us. And that's one of the things that I like to do. I like to see what the AI will do for me, but I also want to be able to use my brain and figure out what I want. When using AI, that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we never do is throw our thinking out and let the AI do the thinking for us, even though, as you see, it's thinking right now. But we want to make sure that we're not letting the AI do all the thinking. And it's still thinking. And we'll let it continue to think. So AI, you keep thinking. We're going to go over here. We appreciate you. Quick story, I was working with a group of instructional coaches, and we were trying to figure out a way to implement something. And one lady says, oh, let me pull up ChatGPT and put it in. It's like, hey, what about this? What if we just pulled out a pencil and paper and brainstorm first before we went to AI? Just an idea. Let's not give up our thinking totally and laying things on AI. Let's think about how we can use our brain first and AI second. And I picked up on this thing. My daughter-in-law, we were at a restaurant, and she picks up her phone and she takes a picture of her food. And I was like, what are you doing? And my son says, well, the phone has to eat before she does. It's like, okay, that's silly. But I get it. And then as I was thinking about it, the process is the same when using AI. Let the brain think before the AI does. So yes, the phone has to eat before she does. The brain has to think before the AI does. So let's try to make sure that we're thinking about using our brains more and the AI just a little bit less. So when I'm thinking of creating these whole idea of prompting and making the apps that I've created, I use the same prompt. I gave the prompt several things. I gave it a role and a context. If you structure your prompts this way, usually you'll get great outputs. So structure your AI directives like a professional design brief to ensure educational alignment. You want to make sure that what you want as your output from the AI is what you're actually saying. So, senior instructional designer and developer, yes, some highfalutin job. A lot of times I used to say, act as if you're a Harvard researcher doing this or something like that, just because I wanted the AI to think that I think it's really brilliant. And it seems to work out easier that way. I don't know if it's still that way, but when ChatGPT and other LLMs came out, it always worked better if you gave it a role like a professional that's super intelligent in their career field. Anyway, I always give it a role, and then I give it a context. And this context for these, it was a 6th grade student struggling with vocabulary retention. That's why we had the vocabulary sort in science, the vocabulary sort with the book, and we're able to do that by giving the AI an idea of the context that we want. Then we want to set clear boundaries to prevent AI hallucinations, because sometimes AI gets things wrong. Sometimes it hallucinates and does things a little bit different. And we want to maintain the grade level appropriateness. So I said I wanted to do a 6th grade, but then I said, for my task, build an interactive vocabulary sorting tool using drag and drop, which you saw the drag and drop. But we want to make sure we use a 6th grade reading level, because this is for 6th graders. And why would we want something that didn't work with the 6th graders? So we can make the interface visuals with no complex menus. So all the kids had to do, as you saw, they would click the button. The app was there. It showed them. All they had to do is drag and drop. And it made it simple, and it was easy, and kids could easily attain access to that. Kids could work with it. Teachers could work with it. And it worked for what we needed. But sometimes the Vibe does not do exactly what we need it to do. And what happens when it hallucinates or the app breaks? So with Vibe coding, there's not a whole lot of debugging that we have to do inside of the code. What we do is we just have a conversation. Just talk to it. So in essence, we don't need to hunt for missing semicolons or looking for the brackets that may be in there. We just tell the AI, I clicked the submit button and nothing happened. Fix the logic. And as I go back to our Jeopardy game that I told it to create, and let's see what it did. There we go. It changed it. All I did was say, hey, you have 5 categories. I want 4 categories. And the AI, it changed it immediately. And it gave us exactly what we want. If I wanted to change the colors or the categories or anything else, I would simply go back to the AI and tell it, hey, change this or change that. A couple of things in regards to Vibe coding. I shared with you Gemini, PlayLab, Canva, and Kira. But there are other tools out there that are being used by teachers. For example, this is an AP literature poetry workshop. The teacher that I'm working with, he has created spaces for his AP students to work on poetry inside of his AI app. He built this app specifically for his AP literature students. I guess I should ask them how they did on their AP tests, since they took them last week, just out of curiosity. But he wanted something to work with the students, and he said, I think if I build this, it will be able to show the students what I want them to see, and it will break down, it will tell them about their thinking and about the way things are working. And I was like, do it. A couple of other tools that were created. So we used, let's see, will this work with this one? We used AI to create these apps for students and their student use in specific places, but I also can use the same idea to help the folks in the front office. The secretary was exporting information from her SIS, from the student information system. And she got a beautiful CSV file. And she said, I have to go through this CSV file and I have to extract specific data, but it's not in a pretty format to where I could tell the CSV file, or I could write an algorithm or a code inside of Excel so that the data will come out where I need it. So I said, hey, why don't we just build an app that would do it? So we told Gemini what we wanted. We dropped it in here, and we created this very remedial, but it's a useful app. And when we take a spreadsheet and drop it in the middle, it filters out, as you see, it filters out the grade levels 6 through 8 and combined total of absences are greater than 7. But the way that the SIS pushes out, there's several different absences that the teacher has or that the school has set up. So they have, if a parent dismisses them, if they're sick, or if there's an athletic event, or there's several different ones, and we just put it all inside of the code or the vibe, so that when the secretary gets a spreadsheet from the SIS, she simply drops it in and it gives her exactly what she wants, just the data that she wants, the students, the specific classes, and the specific amount of absences. And then there was one more that I would like to share, and this is the same teacher. For his same literature class, he said, so we're studying specific books, and I gotta wake the app up, and I want an app that goes directly with those books. And I was like, okay, you can do that. So we talked about it, we worked together. There's several companies that allow for schools and teachers to use their apps that have spaces inside of them where they can actually have forms, data forms, and charts and things inside of the app that you don't have to pay for. So in his literary multiverse, he had the books that they were studying, Where the Crawdads Sing, Catcher in the Rye, Macbeth, Frankenstein, and The Road. And he said, I want to focus on 2 characters from each book. So we told the AI just these 2 characters from each book. So each book, there's a character that you can select to go with those. For Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and then 2 locations. And once you choose the character, well, the book, the character, and the location, the students are then able to have a conversation with the characters from that location. And as we work to build this out, and I know we're going to do a whole lot more next year just because this worked really well for him and his students, and they love the conversation, be it with Lady Macbeth or with the gentleman from The Catcher in the Rye, who I can't think of his name right now, but that's okay. And the students love the conversation. Yes, in The Catcher in the Rye, we had to go back into the code to make sure that the language was appropriate for these high school students, but it was simply just going in and using our own words, saying, please don't use language that's inappropriate for, well, we said students that are above 6th grade, just because sometimes AI thinks 6th graders or 7th graders or high schoolers should hear lots of language that we didn't believe they should be listening to. So that's how it worked on there. So now that I've given you all of this information, please take the time to go out and do something amazing. Think about what you want created. Think about tools that you don't have access to or tools that may not do exactly what you need, and see if you could create those on your own. And if you can't, ask AI. Just go out and be amazing. Reach out to me. I'm at Greg Bagby on all the socials, and we can see what you can do. Thank you.
Mr. Bagby, I'm blown away. First, I'd love to be in that AP English class you just described and talking to Lady Macbeth. That would be so interesting. But I particularly love your idea about using your brain before you use AI. I think that is a good rule of thumb across the board. So Thank you for being here, for sharing your expertise and your ideas that we know work in K-12 schools. So thank you for joining us today in the AI and K-12 Collaborative, coming from Middle Tennessee State University and the College of Education. We hope you enjoyed this session produced by the Center for Educational Media. We're so excited to invite you to participate in CEM Online, our learning management system for virtual professional development. At CEM Online, you can complete video courses and download professional development certificates. To access CEM Online, go to cem.mtsu.edu.